I Love Mortgage Brokering, episode 63.
Want to rock your mortgage business? Then crank up the volume with your host, Scott Heckford, on I Love Mortgage Brokering.
Hi, Broker Nation. I am thrilled to introduce our guest today. Jason Scott is a mortgage broker with TMG. He's been a broker for 8 years based out of Edmonton, Alberta. He's also the author of Approved Mortgage Advice for All Stages of Life. I love talking to authors. I'm stoked about this interview today. Jason, you ready to rock?
I am. Thanks for having me on, Scott.
Hey, no problem. So can you just tell me a little bit about yourself?
So this is my 8th year as a mortgage broker. I'm still very much growing my business, and everything is a work in progress. Let's see, I have 2 little boys and a lovely wife and a dog. So I live a pretty boring but awesome life.
And so how did you get into the mortgage business? Because no one ever starts out as a little kid saying, I want to be a mortgage broker when I grow up. So what was your path?
So my professional path is I went to university for journalism in Toronto, and I worked at the Toronto Star as a student, and then after university I went and worked at the Winnipeg Sun. So I have a writing and reporting background, and after a while I decided the photographers were clearly having more fun than I was, and so I went back to school for photojournalism and ended up in Edmonton because I was doing an internship at the Edmonton Journal, and fully expected to head back east after that summer, but things turned out that my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she moved out here and joined me, and we've been in Edmonton for 15 years. So I worked as a freelance photographer for 8 years. I had a business with 2 other photographers, and we would cover Edmonton and Northern Alberta for the rest of the world. So we would shoot for, the Globe and Mail, Canadian Press, the Edmonton Journal, New York Times, whoever needed newspaper coverage, photojournalism coverage in this part of the world. And it was a fun and glamorous job in the sense that, we got to go to sporting events and political events and very exciting kind of stuff. The problem with it was that the hours were terrible and the pay was worse. And so
it's like the radio business. They also don't pay their people very well in the radio business either.
Yeah. It's a great gig when you're 22 and single and no real responsibility, right? And, what happened was eventually we had a child coming, and I was like, I need to make more money. How do I do that? Well, I started I got interested in rental properties and bought a couple of rental properties, and, was still doing the photography business, and essentially I got sent to cover a forest fire in Tumbler Ridge, and I was gone at the drop of a hat. And I came back 3 days later to my wife, Catherine, standing in our kitchen, trembling in anger because I had been gone for so long. Mm-hmm. And, our son was screaming. He was just a little baby at the time, and, it had been a bad day.
Right.
So she basically said, "You're done."
That's hilarious.
So it took me a couple of years to figure out what I was going to do next. I sort of was torn between financial advising and becoming a mortgage broker, and ultimately I chose mortgage brokering. It just seemed more aligned with my interest in rental properties, and frankly, I wasn't sure being a financial planner was really a winning proposition, right? You're either not making the clients enough money in an up market, or the market's down and they're not happy with you because, their investments are down. Mm-hmm. So my wife, fast forward a little bit, my wife gets a job at the university, which is an 18-month contract. And basically the same week, she finds out she's pregnant again. And so that really was the impetus for me to make the switch. So after our second son was born, I stayed home with him and started my mortgage practice. So I would be holding him, and, he'd be asleep against me or on my chest, and I'd be talking on the phone to clients and working on applications. And, if we had to go meet clients, I'd bundle him up, and off we'd go in his little car seat.
That's hilarious. Take him with you?
Yeah, totally. He was, I refer to him as my vice president of breaking the ice. He was really good for building rapport.
Right. Show up with your baby, and you're, okay, can you sign here and hold my baby?
Yeah. Yeah. This guy's next meal literally depends on this.
Right.
So,
Incidentally, I haven't read all your book, but I did read some of it, and your writing's excellent. So I'm not surprised then that you tell me you have a background in journalism. So anybody listening, if you check out his book, it's well written. So definitely something. Yeah, and it's good. You might as well use the skills you already have and bring them right into the mortgage business and just apply them, right? So I want to come back to the book thing in a little bit, but so before we dive into your story, can you tell me about a success quote that's really had an impact on your life or business?
Mine's based on an American marketing guru by the name of Dan Kennedy, and his quote is, "You are not in the business you are in. You are in the business of marketing the business you are in."
Mm-hmm, that's good. I love Dan. So have you taken any of Dan Kennedy's courses or anything?
Yeah, I have. I don't have an entrepreneurial background, and so when I got into this industry, it was a massive learning curve. Even with the photography business, we weren't really, going out and chasing sales because people were calling us. We were known in our industry.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it really was, being completely green at it and going, geez, I need leads? What a concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I need to market? Oh, okay. How do I do that? So, I really have spent a lot of time and money and effort just learning on how to do this sort of stuff. I guess, a lot of people who have had previous businesses or gone to business school or whatever, they know this stuff already. I had to sort of learn it as I went along.
Mm-hmm. And if anybody listening, if they have never heard of Dan Kennedy, he's maybe you can describe him as well. I would describe him as one of the best copywriters in the business. So how did you stumble into him?
I came across him because I was talking to a real estate investor who, I think, if I recall correctly, he was getting his broker's license at the time, and he suggested that I check out Dan Kennedy's No BS monthly marketing newsletter. And yeah, so I've been on again, off again, subscriber to his stuff. I'm not currently subscribed on anything. It's one of those things where I think, once you get the fundamentals, you can move on.
Right, yeah, but there's lots of great stuff in it. So,
absolutely.
This quote that you got from Dan. So, how have you applied that in your business? So, this idea of you're not actually in the mortgage business; you're in the marketing of mortgages business. So, ultimately, without any leads or prospects, you're nowhere, right? So, if I was to give advice to anyone who's going through, a quiet period, is turn your attention to, marketing. However that is for you, whether it's social media or direct marketing or just networking, etc. Everything that we do ultimately boils down to a marketing exercise. So you just have to keep at it. And obviously, as you get busier, it becomes more of a challenge to find the time to do the marketing. Mm-hmm. But I think it's probably the only way to smooth out the peaks and valleys of, the business flow. Right. And there's definitely that in our business. They sort of go in cycles. So another thing I've noticed talking to successful entrepreneurs, mortgage brokers, is that failure happens, but it's never fatal. And looking back, there's always a lesson. So can you share an example of something that you'd failed at, and then now that you look back, there was a lesson in it for you? And this comes back to marketing as well. So I was with a company called Urban Mortgage, and I was running the office in Edmonton, and we did some radio advertising. And, ironically, the only 2 deals we got out of that was on the very first day of the campaign. So we got 1 deal and then the referral to that person's sister on the very first day. And then we went for 3 or 4 months with, some leads, but nothing ever converted. It was a costly adventure. And, my personal take is if you're doing radio, you better have really deep pockets to sustain it. The lesson, I guess, is you got to be measuring your results, and if something's not working, you got to immediately either adjust it or eliminate it and keep moving forward. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I've had my own foray into radio, and I did it for a year, and in the end, the math worked out that I just basically broke even, but I didn't feel like that was enough for me to make it worth it, because then I was essentially working for the radio station. But that was yeah. I think if I remember the numbers correctly, it was something like $10,000 per sale on our campaign. So it was atrocious. Right. So, yeah. It's definitely something it can burn up a lot of money quickly if anyway, if things you don't get, part of it's luck, part of it's sort of how the messaging and all the other, and just hit that one client at the right time, and it worked. So
Yeah, exactly.
So I've noticed talking to successful mortgage brokers, they all have systems and processes. They don't just show up and hope for the best. And they're also willing to tweak them as time goes by, as the market changes, as clients' expectations change. So can you share an example of an administrative process that maybe wasn't working as well as you'd like, and then an adjustment you made in the outcome?
Yeah, and this one's actually, it's an ongoing process for me. But I kind of believe in the idea that I'm trying to build a mortgage practice, not just sell mortgages. And so, there's this ongoing struggle to do annual reviews and be proactive with clients. And so, historically, I've used Excel spreadsheets for keeping track of clients. I've recently gotten involved in a CRM, which, is starting to help me be more proactive with my clients.
Mm-hmm. So previously then it was just sort of random, or whenever you sort of were slow, you would do the like your annual reviews, and now how does the process look?
Well, before I never did annual reviews. So I keep in contact with a direct mail newsletter with clients. Mm-hmm. But, I was so busy doing the deals and doing everything else that clients, just touching base and saying, hey, how's it going? What's new? What's changed in your life? Mm-hmm. Was really difficult to do and really hard to keep track of. Obviously the CRM, tells me when their anniversary dates are. It tells me when their birthdays are, so I'll call them on their birthday. And, as an example, I called a guy last week who it was his anniversary, and we got chatting, and, he told me that he and his wife are unexpectedly expecting their third child. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, yeah, we're going to have to move to a bigger house down, in the next 6 to 12 months. So, just from having that conversation, I know there's likely another deal coming. Right. The really funny part is that I was basically the next person they told after they found out they were pregnant. So, mm-hmm. That's kind of unusual. Right.
Yeah, I know that's great. That's definitely the power of staying in touch. And it's something I've never completely dialed in, those annual reviews. I do an ongoing, like a newsletter type thing, but the annual reviews are so powerful. And everybody talks about them. Everybody says I should do them. Kind of like when I talk to most people, they say I should have got a CRM sooner. Then they get the CRM going, and then the next thing they say is I should be doing annual reviews. And most people don't do them consistently, and it seems like an area of opportunity and weakness at the same time.
Yeah, and I think, part of that has to do with how the compensation model is in the broker world, right? Historically, and I think most people still are, hunting for the next deal because that's where the next commission comes from, right? If trailer models are fully embraced, or that becomes the main form of compensation in the future, I think, that will ultimately allow brokers the time or the flexibility to go back and properly service clients. And, having said that, do I do much trailer model business? No, I don't. Why is that? I'm not quite sure.
I know it's funny when you talk to people, it's everybody, again, they say the same thing. That's it's a great idea, but few people in reality actually do it, or not few, but it's not as widespread as, the upfront model, at least.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, so on the sales side, I also know that talking to successful brokers, they have a sales process. They don't just hope for the best. So can you share an example of part of your sales process that maybe wasn't working as well as you'd like, and then adjustment you made and the outcome you got?
Well, I don't have a sales background. So, when I meet with clients, or when I first started meeting with clients, it really was, here I am. Let's just go through the process.
And here's my baby.
Here's my baby, yeah. We need a college education here, folks.
Yeah, I don't know pressure, but you see this little guy, he doesn't have any food.
That's right. So, over time, I've become much more refined. I have a sales script or questions to focus on. I really do focus or try to focus on the bigger picture of their finances, mm-hmm. and not just, hey, this is a, 5-year fixed at X interest rate, right? So,
right.
And I'm a member of a BNI chapter, so I have a pretty good circle of people I can refer clients to for other things, ranging from car repair to real estate lawyers to, you name it, right? So I think having those sorts of resources works as a value add for clients. And I quite often have clients contacting me saying, hey, do you know someone who can help me with whatever it is they're looking for help?
Right. And so but what about your books? How have you applied the because I have a book as well, and I'm curious how you use the book in your sales process or in the marketing of your business, because it's definitely a differentiator. There's a small handful of people who have books.
Yeah.
So how are you using it?
Well, I'm not using it to generate revenue, that's for sure. I've sold exactly 4 copies, so I don't think the $80 I've made on that has even covered the postage for the last few months of sending the book out. I essentially use the book as a 160-page business card, and so I give it away to clients, to real estate agents. You can download a free copy of it off my website. I suppose I should contact a few publishers and say, hey, do you want to, have a look at this and, see if there's any interest at all. But let's face it, a mortgage book is not going to be the next Harry Potter, right?
No, so you're not John Grisham,
No, I'm in no danger of getting rich off the book from direct sales. I think clients are surprised when I show up or they show up with the book or they get it in the mail. It is, it does separate me from the rest of the pack. And that was one of the reasons why I wrote it, right, was to, set myself up as a credible authority. And, author is part of the word authority, right? So I think books are very much valued in our culture still.
Even if people don't read them. Even if they don't read them, yeah.
Absolutely. And, just the way I've written the book, I don't expect people to read it from cover to cover. So every chapter is basically a different scenario. So there's fictional characters. So, chapter 1 is your first time home buyers and, the young couple figuring out the process or going through the process. Chapter 2 is a little bit older couple who's moving up. So, really a client only needs to read the chapter that's relevant to them. And if they happen to read the rest of it, great.
So you can just pick and choose it. And so what part in the process, so a new customer calls you and says, hey, I've heard about you, or a friend told me to call you. Do you give them a copy when you meet them? Do you mail them a copy? Like, what's it look like?
Yeah, I do both of the above. My personal preference is to actually meet clients face to face. I think it builds a stronger relationship. And I think your odds of getting referrals increases if you're face to face. Now, I'm in a mastermind group, and some of the guys in the group who do way more volume than I do, they simply don't have the time to meet with clients. So they do stuff over the phone, etc. But I'm still at the stage where, I can meet people. I like to meet people. So in that situation, I'll give them a copy of the book. I mean, certainly there's clients where I don't meet them and I'll mail them a copy.
Yeah, with mine, I don't do the mail thing. I typically, when I meet with someone, I'll give them a copy and sign it and then tell them, I'll put their name in it. So if I see them selling it online for really cheap, I'll give them a hard time. And they usually get a chuckle out of that. And then I typically, though, will... I don't mail out books to customers, to my clients that are not local. But when I went to your website and I was kind of scoping you out and I saw that you had the book for download, I'm like, hey, I should do that with my book. So I'm just working on getting mine available for download as well, because I think it's a great idea to. And do you find you get more people will download the book first, or like, is there any way for you to track the feedback or the numbers or anything that you're getting from the online version of the book?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I had someone just redo my website to make sure that was a responsive website. In other words, it's mobile friendly.
Yeah.
So the digitized version of the book has only been up on the website for a couple of weeks. And in terms of the tracking numbers, it's supposed to be notifying me when someone downloads. That isn't working for me, although my website person says that she can see the changes on her end. So I just haven't touched base to see, what the number is.
Right. Yeah, I downloaded it just a little while ago, so maybe you'll get a notification. Mortgage broker, get a mortgage broker alert. Mortgage broker alert, downloading your book. This book will self-destruct. No, just kidding.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I think if anyone's got the time and energy to write a book, they certainly should. It was a 1.5-year-long process for me, which included a 6-month period where I was halfway through the book and said, forget it. I'm not going to do this, right? Because I was too busy writing mortgage business. And, I'm bad for working on projects and getting them most of the way there and then not pushing, the final 20% to get it done. And that was very much the case with this book. And, I have an accountability coach who sort of kept my feet to the fire, and I eventually got it done and, got it out. I came out in May of 2014, and then it was kind of funny. It was sitting at the printers when CMHC announced their changes to the self-employed rules. And I was like, crap, what am I going to do? Do I pull it back and rewrite the chapter or just keep on going? So, I decided to say, forget it. We're doing the first version as is. And then early this year, I did a second edition, which corrects the self-employed chapter to reflect, the end of stated income for CMHC.
Right. That's good. Yeah, that's one of the challenges about writing any book with sort of industry or that type of technical knowledge in it is it changes so much that, that it gets out of date so fast. You can't stay up on it.
Yeah. So, it's very much a living document. And when I do a print run of books, like physical books, I do a small batch of 750. And then that way, if I end up with a box of books that are out of date, so be it, right? It's not like I've invested, thousands and thousands of dollars into, a bunch of books that are now essentially, good for starting fires.
Mm-hmm. Right. One of the other things too, that was since we're on the topic, that I found helpful is I'll actually give people 2 copies of the book. So if I have a good meeting with them, I'll sign one and give it to them, and I'll give them another copy and say, hey, if you have any friends or coworkers and I've actually got deals from people handing out my book before I even did the deal that the first person I met. So the first person I met, their mortgage hasn't gone through. They went to work, handed my book out. The next person calls me, and I now have like two opportunities. So something to think about if you have, because they're very inexpensive really at the end of the day compared to most forms of marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm going to steal that if you don't mind, Scott.
No, go for it. That's why I shared it with you.
Yeah, because I've only been giving out 1 copy typically, right? And you're right. I think my cost per book is around $6 or $7 all in, right? And so the actual print cost is about $5, and if I factor in, the cost of the editor and the cost of the graphic designer, et cetera, that that kicks it up another couple of bucks. But
we can chat about that off air too. Sorry, I didn't mean to make this all about books, but because I have some ideas on how you can get them even cheaper. But we'll talk. So I want to switch to diversifying your income. So I know talking to brokers that there seems to be 2 camps. One says yes, you should look at diversifying. Another camp says no, just be a mortgage broker. Where do you fall in there? And if you are looking at diversifying, what are you focusing on?
Yeah, so for 7 years, I was of the opinion that, you should only be a mortgage broker and be the best damn mortgage broker you can be. As soon as we're done this call, I'm off to meet with an insurance company to sign up because I've just passed my licensing exam for life insurance. And I did that for a couple of reasons. Number one, if we have to offer clients life insurance, we may as well offer them, full term kind of coverage. So there's, additional revenue per client. The other reason behind it is, it's another fence that you're building around your client in terms of, improving retention and improving referral opportunities, etc. So I am now of the diversification of income group. Yeah. Excellent.
So I'm going to move to the rapid fire questions so you can answer these with shorter answers if you like. What's the number one thing holding back most mortgage brokers from being successful?
Oh, stick-to-itness, just getting up and treating this as a practice, not just a job. So if you're going to do this for the next 25 years, treat it like it's something you're going to do for the next 25 years.
Mm-hmm. And what one thing or habit has made you successful?
I don't know. That's still a work in progress. I mean, is there one thing? I don't know. Working hard at it, marketing to people, just trying to do what's right for clients all the time.
And do you have an internet resource or software program used to make your business more successful? You mentioned CRM, but do you have what CRM was it?
So I've recently, in the last few months, I've signed up with Teneda. So they're out of Ontario, and it's a CRM specifically for mortgage brokers. It's a big CRM, like a big program. So, it's a process in terms of learning it and getting everything running on it. So I'm still very much in the process of that. And then the other thing that I've just tweaked onto in the last couple of weeks is Robert Klein's Hippo Contact, which is basically a digital newsletter. So I'm going to give that a go and see how it goes.
Cool. And So where do you think our industry's headed? Where's the opportunity?
I think there's a ton of opportunity. I mean, in terms of grabbing market share, there's 70% of market share left to go get, right? So there's no reason why we can't grow market share. I think from the broker industry or the brokerage perspective, I think we'll probably see some consolidation or further consolidation, and boutique standalone brokerage is going to become much more rare, I suspect.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way.
Yeah, certainly compression of commissions is likely to be an issue in the future. So, that's another argument for diversifying your income and getting the insurance license.
Mm-hmm. So this is the last question, one of my favorites. It's a DeLorean question. Remember the movie Back to the Future? Mm-hmm. And so if you could get in the DeLorean, the car that travels in time, and I could whip you back to 9 years ago when your wife, or I guess it was more than 9 years ago when she said, hey, you're done with the journalism. But if you could go back to your first day as a mortgage broker and give yourself some advice, what 3 things would you tell yourself?
Well, I guess the big one is when you're first starting out and you have no clients, ironically, you have a bit of an advantage over busy brokers because you've got all day long to market. So, focus in on the marketing. That'll eventually lead to business. You just have to stick with it long enough and, be prepared to change up whatever marketing efforts that are not working. Just cut it off quick and move on to something else.
Mm-hmm. So that's 2 things. So start marketing. Second thing would be prepared to make adjustments to the marketing. What will be another? Is there anything else you'd tell yourself? Buy Apple stock. Just kidding.
Yeah, or Google or whatever.
Yeah, it'd be like, listen, dude. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to refinance your house, buy Apple stock, and we're going to be set. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. No, I would say do the CRM immediately and get the license insurance sooner, and maybe seriously look at the trailer model compensation. I think done even in a small amount over enough years, it's probably pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, Jason, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people find you online?
So my website is edmontonmortgagebroker.com. I don't do a whole lot of Twitter, but if you want to find me on Twitter, it's @MortgageJason.
And are you hiring at all?
I am, but I'm looking for an assistant in terms of, handling some of the marketing and administrative work.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time today. And if anybody's listening, they can check out the show notes, links to Jason, to his book at ilovemortgagebrokering.com. And Jason, I hope you absolutely crush the rest of your year.
Thanks a lot, Scott. It was a pleasure chatting.
Want to rock your mortgage business? Then crank up the volume with your host, Scott Peckford, on I Love Mortgage Brokering.
Hey, Broker Nation, Scott Peckford here. Have you joined our VIP club for mortgage brokers yet? If not, you're missing out. We share exclusive content not available on the web or the show. We share scripts, step-by-step guides, and other insider tips to help you save time and make you more money. I can't tell you how many times after I turn off the recorder, a guest starts sharing some awesome advice or a script or a tip, and I take the best of this and share it with my VIPs. If you want to get on the list, visit ilovemortgagebrokering.com/VIP. That's ilovemortgagebrokering.com/VIP. Oh, and one other thing. Since this is exclusively for mortgage brokers, there is a skill testing question. Good luck, and I hope you continue to rock your mortgage biz.